Right, so it is all kicking off in Parliament now as a cross-party group of MPs, a cross-party grouping a lot of us had a feeling would be working together going forward since the general election, have indeed come together and launched a motion, in this instance, for the immediate recognition of the State of Palestine by the UK government, something that is woefully overdue, something that largely hasn't happened because of our foreign policy no doubt being led by the United States, and it cannot be denied in no small part due to the lobbying of pro-Israel vested interests having far too much influence on the highest levels of our government. It's the first major move by the new Independent Alliance of MPs, the 5 independent MPs elected across England and Wales at the last general election, who have now come together, which of course includes Jeremy Corbyn, who have, together with the Green Party MPs, 4 of them, pushing for something that globally is growing in consensus as something that has to happen. The additional protections it would offer to the Palestinian people if their state was officially recognised at the UN. But does it stand a hope in hell of making any difference whatsoever, given that this is not something that's going to come to a meaningful vote at this stage? Or will it just expose how many MPs, simply enough, remain completely unmoved by the atrocities we've witnessed in Gaza at Israel's hands, and is now increasing in ferocity in the West Bank too, when they inevitably continue to ignore it? Right, so a motion to formally recognise the State of Palestine has been laid down as a cross-party action by the 5 Independent Alliance MPs and the 4 Green Party MPs. Thank goodness there is some leadership in Parliament on the sort of thing this country should be doing, rather than bragging about having to freeze pensioners, starve kids, raise the state pension age, and basically mete out a harder, more vicious form of austerity than the Tories did. And no wonder Starmer's approval ratings have plummeted like they have, as was the words of the SNP's Pete Wishart at PMQs just yesterday, to which Starmer simply bragged about how many MPs he has now compared to the SNP. Notwithstanding the fact if that election was held again today, of course, given how many people around the country who voted Labour are enduring significant buyer's remorse, I dare say, Starmer didn't earn those MPs. He conned them out of the public by yet again saying one thing which turns out to be a lie, and then does something completely different. But now all those MPs, well, they're going to be put to the test over this matter of Palestine in the eyes of the public, at least. All those pro-Israel donations some have received, the donations the parties received. Starmer himself heavily in debt to the Israel lobby for simply being where he is, leader of the Labour Party and now Prime Minister. Do they dare put their names to something the party leadership would not like? Anyway, whilst we can entertain ourselves with the sort of mental gymnastics the pro-Israel MPs in the Labour Party might be doing, this news that the early day motion that has been laid down, and indeed the fact people are actually talking about it, the motion itself, is far more important. It's been a source of eternal shame that the UK remains in the minority of nations globally who do not recognise a Palestinian state, especially since this country did so much to strip it away and hand it over to the Zionist movement, to create their state of Israel with all the war and land seizure, colonialism and occupation that has ensued in the 76 years since. It really is brass neck stuff that we don't recognise Palestine as a state, therefore, but such is how pervasive lobbying on such matters has been. Recognition of the State of Palestine has been laid down in the form of an early day motion on the parliamentary website, EDM 71, if you want to go and look it up for yourself and see if your MP has signed or want to get in touch with them to do so. It reads that this House notes the UN General Assembly resolution of the 9th of May 2024, which recommended that the Security Council reconsider the matter of the recognition of the State of Palestine following the use of their veto by the United States on the 18th of April 2024, recognises the international community's growing consensus, noting that as of May 2024, Ireland, Spain and Norway joined 145 UN member states in recognising the State of Palestine, condemns the vote of Israel's Knesset on the 18th of July 2024 to reject the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, and calls on HM government to immediately recognise the State of Palestine in accordance with the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion of 2024. Which recognise that the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip constitute a single territorial unit, the integrity of which is to be respected. Now, I quite liked the wording of that. I'll go into the whys in a moment, but thus far it has been signed by 16 MPs at least at time of writing. I hope that will go up, though I'm also not all that surprised it's so low, given how many bought and paid for so many parties and their MPs seem to be by the Israel lobby. Who has signed it so far is quite interesting, though. The first 6 MPs who sign an EDM are called the sponsors, and no surprise that consists of the 5 Independent Alliance MPs plus Green Party co-leader Carla Denyer in this instance. The other signatories consist of the other 3 Green MPs, 4 members of the SNP, 1 Lib Dem, my own MP now, funnily enough, and 2 of the 7 MPs that Starmer suspended for voting to end the 2-child benefit cap, keeping kids in poverty inflicted upon them by the Tories, all to be continued under Starmer because he'd rather do that than tax wealth. Just 2 of the 7, though. It's John McDonnell and Apsana Begum. Now, the other 5 are just going to toe the line to get readmitted to Labour between now and then, and when their 6-month time is up, to the point they won't even put their name to an early day motion, lest Starmer not like it, which won't even end up going to a vote because, well, they don't. They simply draw attention to issues some MPs feel are significant. It tells Starmer that threatening these lefties will work nicely any time he feels the need to. Fair play to McDonnell and Begum for not having it. I hope the others will sign it as well in due course, and more besides. Perhaps their constituents might like to ask them about that. The motion is canny, though, because it points out several issues that have gone woefully underreported in our media. Many people will have heard of the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion that regarded the occupation of Palestine by Israel as no longer a legal occupation. But less was said of the fact the court also said that the State of Palestine should be recognised as well for its own protection. When so much is made of Israel's right to exist, does Palestine not have that same right? And if not, why? Is it not time our parliament was made to vote accordingly and show how whether or not Israel gets special treatment in this regard or not? And the 193 UN member states, 145 of them, as aforementioned in that motion, already do recognise the State of Palestine. That's now got up to 148, thanks to Ireland, Spain and Norway. So the UK is now one of just 45 UN member states that don't recognise Palestine even. That, considering Ireland, Spain and Norway now recognise the State of Palestine and have done so for the sake of the Palestinian people in light of the genocide Israel engaged in Gaza following the night of October 7th, is to protect the sanctity of that state and recognise the need to protect those people. Israel already see these people as less worthy, less than human. They enact apartheid upon them and have done so for decades. Are we going to do likewise by continuing to refuse to recognise their right to exist as well in lands that were theirs and weren't ours here in the UK to frankly give away way back when in the waning days of the British Empire? Will we recognise frankly the error of our ways and hold our hands up and say enough's enough, we need to do something about this? I won't hold my breath when we have a Zionist without qualification as our Prime Minister now, even if he does still seem to think that Rishi Sunak is the PM. If you didn't see PMQs yesterday, honestly, Starmer had a mare. Anyway, if we don't recognise a Palestinian state, though, if we still refuse to do that, then we're no better, frankly, than the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, which itself voted to reject the establishment of a Palestinian state. I don't want to be compared to them in any way, shape or form. It will also, as a member of the UN Security Council, heap more pressure on those still voting to reject this recognition of a Palestinian state. Leave the US and their veto hung out to dry all on their lonesome. We've abstained at the Security Council for long enough here in the UK, and is it not tiresome that these permanent members can consistently block what is the obvious and humane thing to do, as the US keeps on doing? Let them continue to bring shame upon themselves without being helped by us here in the UK as well. And apart from anything else, it's just a stupid position that we're in by not recognising a Palestinian state. We support this notion still, as impossible as it seems with the way Israel continues to conduct itself right now, in something called a two-state solution. In what way can we possibly say we support a two-state solution when we refuse to formally recognise one of those states? It is shameless, brazen hypocrisy. It's embarrassment. It's cringeworthy. And it only serves to reinforce the belief amongst many that the whole two-state solution shtick is simply paying lip service to a situation we actually have no real interest in resolving at all, because the other state, the bigger state, the more powerful state, is through its various lobbyists and other interests lining politicians' pockets. How can we expect, especially when it comes to Labour and the Conservative MPs particularly, for them to even sign an early day motion, let alone vote, if it ever comes to it, for a Palestinian state when both have a Friends of Israel grouping within their parties. Would I like to see those MPs defy such positions? Of course I would, but I cannot help but expect that not to happen. If we're frankly sick of being shamed over this issue, then the only way we'll realistically see that change is to stop voting for both of those parties that are bought and paid for by vested interests and lobbyists and vote for the progressive ones who aren't. They are certainly showing you who they are right now by who is actually backing this EDM. Keep an eye on it, therefore, and others. They are incredibly revealing. You can see which EDMs your MP is backed on the government website too. You can just do a general search under their name for it. Meanwhile, of course, in only giving a damn about one state and not the other, the small matter of an arms sale ban that isn't really one has garnered much media attention, as I'm sure you become aware of, but they've only really scratched the surface of it. There are bigger issues to David Lammy's pathetic gesture politics over Israel and Palestine and his arms sale ban, as this video recommendation will tell you all about. We go a bit deeper, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.